Welcome back to another episode of Cseking In. My name is Nikki Czech, and with me in studio is Dom Rampone, a very, very dear friend and someone I very much admire in the community.
So, your words are kind.
Thank you for coming in to spend some time with me, Dom. So for those of you that may or may not know Dom, Dominic, he's very impressive and extremely busy. So a sales rep with West Manufacturing.
Correct.
Yep. You are a rep of some sort for international
Coliseums. I'm a business development officer for international Coliseums. We build ice arenas around North America.
Just build ice arenas around North America. Just named vice president for the West Bank.
That's actually the correct term is vice chair.
Vice chair for the West Bank First Nation Economic Development Board. Domestic sales rep for
Jealous Fruits.
Jealous Fruits, I knew that.
The cherry, big cherry grower,
Huge operation. So impressive.
Massive.
Beautiful building out towards,
it's quite
towards the
impressive.
airport. Serves on the Italian Chamber of Commerce Canada West.
That's correct. We have 40 offices around the world, and we're governed from Italy, not from Canada.
Fascinating. And that's back to your roots. How many generations?
My grandchildren will be 6 generations in Kelowna. And interesting about that, talk about generationals. I just got back from a week of it in Italy doing a genealogical research with a cousin of mine, and they have this one part of this little town in Italy called Frinco, and they call it, I'm Italian, so my hands wave, Rico Rampone, which means on the hill, and the whole area of this little town is all Rampones. It was impressive. Anyhow, that's a little
that's amazing. And then we're not done yet. So Dominic also serves on the Uptown Rutland Board Association,
Correct.
URBA, and then also the Okanagan Historical Society. And we can find you in the City of Kelowna Chamber at council meetings.
Right.
Almost every single...
I try to hit everyone when I'm in town because I find it interesting to be involved and be involved at a personal level. Like I'm an in-person type guy. During COVID, I hated doing everything from Zoom meetings and that. Yeah. Because when you're talking to people in person, in the different organizations I'm with, if you can see that they're not getting it, you can pivot to another way to get your point across, and then it spears to this conversation goes to this, and we've done that with you and me over the years. Conversations could be days we could spend, talking about things. So I think that's the importance of doing the in-person stuff. And the Historical Society, it's near and dear to our hearts because our family came from northern Italy to Kelowna in 1893.
1893.
So we've got a lot of history over here. And the latest project that I'm really involved with is restoring the Father Pandolzi mission with the beams and the windows. We got a grant from Heritage BC, so I'm kind of overseeing that. And it's fascinating, the historical component of Kelowna. And every town's got the history, but our history is Rampones are such a big part of it, especially on the agricultural side.
Absolutely.
So we've grown everything from tobacco to dairy cows to vegetables to grapes. You name it pretty well. That we were an interesting sorry for digressing, but
please.
But an interesting stat, when my great-grandfather came over here, we used to have a fruit stand on Gordon, and right beside it there's an alfalfa field. So he grew onions in 1919 there. You see pictures at Orchard Park of these onion sacks. So you got to visualize people coming back from World War I, so there's a lot of need for food. So in that 1919, there was 27 acres of onions there, and he took home a check from the pack and also wherever he sold them for $19,000 in 1919. Like, I wouldn't even know what that would be in today's dollars. Like, he was
that was a lot of onions.
A lot of onions and a lot of money. But the thing that impressed me is that well, kind of sad to see it, but I'm the only one remotely involved in agriculture of all the Rampones.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, Dom?
With Jealous Fruits.
Yeah.
You know, and I sit on the agricultural advisory committee for the city.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So, but I always encourage people to get involved in their community because they can make a difference. And one example, I remember a few years ago, they had the Casorso family. They were the family that called over the Rampones, but they had an issue with some property theirs on Mission Creek. And Steve Thompson was the Minister of the Environment at the time. So I said, well, let's go see him. And Rob Casorso said, well, he's never going to see us. You know, I said, well, they know the family. I said, he's a pretty good friend of mine. So we phoned up and we had the...
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry, Dominic.
No, bless you. And so we met with him and he had his concerns. And then as we're walking out, Rob says, oh my God, he really listened. And I said...
Steve Thompson,
Yeah, I have all the time in the day for him. But the interesting part of it was, I said to Rob, if we would never went to see him, I said, every politician will give you an audience, but it may not be tomorrow. But, if you can voice your concerns. But the other thing that when I tried, I've done lots of lobbying for agricultural farm workers and all that, and transportation against the city of what they're doing wrong. But the thing is that I always try to come with a solution. Mm-hmm. May not be the right solution, but at least they can say, okay, well, he thought about this. Maybe I didn't have all the information. But if you don't come with a solution, then you're just saying, I don't want it in my backyard. Mm-hmm. And you got to think your solution out a little bit. So, and that's where I think with all these different organizations, people see me at a bunch of different events, but I really thrive on trying to, and also try to find out why people moved here. Mm-hmm. Why did they move here? Why did they start out this business? And I made some fantastic friends. There's one family that through an event at Urba, I met this young couple, and she's a trained lawyer from Nicaragua. And oh my gosh, if you meet her, you just feel this energy. So trying to help them, and some people asked me, why are you helping me? And I said, somebody in 1893 helped my great-grandfather. So I feel that I should try to help people that bring something to Canada. And
Dominic, you are at almost every event. I see you everywhere. You are unbelievably busy. I knew you served in a number of capacities with a number of organizations, but I really, truly did not know that you were... this is just your active service. I mean, your list of service in boards and organizations in prior years is enormous. And
I've been on the executive of the BC Fruit Growers Association. I've been on the national board for the Canadian Payroll Association because I was an accountant with the regional district of Central Okanagan for 35 years, and I got elected to the Canadian. I did payroll, and I got elected to the Canadian Payroll Association. So I was on their national board for a number of years. I was treasurer of the Colonial Museum for 10 years, and that's where the historical thing came out. So I was involved there when we did the Laurel Packing House. So that's you feel kind of good about that project. Turned out pretty good. So
I'd say.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things, right? And I really encourage before COVID, I would volunteer for the YMCA Employment Services, and I'd go to the grade 12 classrooms and some of their employment programs that they have, telling the young people the importance of networking.
Fascinating.
And some of the networking things that I've had, because I was involved with hockey too, did scouting for a lot of hockey teams, met tremendous people there. And some of those people now, I'm doing business with West Manufacturing. Either I scouted them or something, and they recognize my name, and, oh, you so-and-so? Yeah, I'm so-and-so. Oh, my God, I lost track of where you were. So those networking things are totally there. And I tell you a real short story that just amazes me. With the International Coliseums, so for 10 years, I worked for Lakeland Super Camps. It was a junior evaluation camp that we ran across North America. We did 14 weekends in the summertime. We invite kids to come out and bring college coaches there. So this Rick Kozebak, who's president of International Coliseums, my kids were involved, and then through another recommendation, they said, you should ask Dominic to look after your Kelowna operation. So he said, would you be interested? And I said, sure, because you're meeting all these people,
Sure.
right? So I got to meet a lot of university coaches that I still keep in contact with today, and it's just really quite fascinating. But I was on the board of the Penticton Chamber of Commerce. We had a business for a short time there, and so they overheard the executive director talking about, because Jim Treliving from Dragons, he had a start in Penticton. So he was a cop there, and then he started a nightclub. First nightclub in the Okanagan was his.
Did not know that.
In Penticton. So they were having some trouble. They wanted to get him to come to speak. And then I said, but I overheard them saying, oh, we're going through his agent and this thing, and it was just a nightmare. So I said, my best friend is his best friend and business partner. So I said, but if I make the call to invite them, we have to get both of them talking about how they got started in Penticton. So I remember it was a Friday, and I phoned Rick, and I said, Rick, I'm on the chamber board in Penticton, but he started out as a school teacher there. And then he got to know Jim. And so then he said, well, he's in Hawaii right now. I'll phone him, and I'll get back to you. Monday morning, Rick phones me. He said he can come July 29th. And I said, oh, awesome. So I told the executive director, whatever you got to do, we got to make this work, because
July 29th is the date.
It is.
Yep.
So we sold out the Lakeside for lunch.
Yeah, you did.
And it was fantastic. The only he didn't want, we offered to pick up his room. No, didn't want that. Didn't want nothing. The only thing he wanted was his book, to sign his book signing. So the way we set it up was to have a fireside talk about their hockey thing. Then he got into a little bit of the business side of it, because they're all business people there. But my emphasis on that is, if I wouldn't made the contact with Rick 20 years before that, never would have had the opportunity. So I walked in, and I was quite honored. They put me on the head table, but the head tables are the one closest there. Oh yeah, no, then they phoned me in the morning, and he says to me, Rick says to me, he says, okay, if Jim brings his son. I said, yeah. So I sat down, and Jim was beside me, so we did small talk about what we did and that. And then so I turned to the son, and I said, so what part are you involved with Watson Pizza? And he said, I'm not. I said, oh my God, there's got to be enough work for you there. I said, he smiled. He said, no, at that time, he was the general manager of the Calgary Flames. I went, oh my God. Now he's the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But it just was so, the connections and the networking that you make pays off unbelievable.
And I think that is about service and being present and showing up, and the universe returns to you.
That's a good way to put it.
Things that you can't even imagine or predict or expect or hope for. It opens opportunities and doors that I think just wouldn't be there if you didn't.
Well, with the Italian Chamber, it's quite exciting. So in the last 4 months, I've been on 4 Zoom meetings with companies from Italy that want to locate in Western Canada through the Italian Chamber. So you make these connections, and you can
facilitate or bring options that maybe they hadn't considered this region.
And some of these consultants, it's just like that project that's on the corner of KLO and Lakeshore. It's retirement, park retirement.
Yeah, park.
So when they first started, I went to their open house and met the owners and stuff and started talking about.
I understand they're a lovely family.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So then I was telling them that's the entrance to the agricultural community. So you have some agricultural flavor to it. So then I hooked him up with Wayne Wilson, who's a historical consultant, used to be curator of the museum. So he did a bunch of historical background on that. Anyhow, they named the building Crystallina after one of the cherry varieties. So it was...
Look at that legacy.
Totally. So it just, it adds to it. And then I also suggested to them, once they get their activity director and stuff in there, is to have people like myself or other retired farmers in. Everybody wants to know how a tree is growing. So those activities could be bringing a tree in a pot and showing them why you prune it this way. People love that, because they can see the tree above that. And when you're talking about the activities, when we had our fruit stand on Gordon, the activity director for Cottonwoods, or I didn't know what she was, she says, would you be willing to bring some corn for the residents? I said, sure, my grandmother's there, so not a problem. So I brought some corn, and she said, how much? I said, well, I can't charge for the older people. One of the activities that they had for those people was shucking the corn. And they were
excited.
Excited.
Purpose
of I used to do this back on the prairies, or I used to do this wherever. So, I think that type of aspect to what we could do with using the people, and retired farmers like to talk about their experiences.
Sure.
Retired businessmen. So, if we can get that kind of influence into a lot of activities, plus you get to tell the story, and there's because they can still see the activity, like from where that park retirement is. If you look up in the hills, you can see all the orchards. So how beneficial it's see this tree that I'm pruning here today, they're all growing up there. So I think there's a real need to it. So those are the type of things that you can bring to it.
So, Dominic, you're so pro the region, pro history, pro business, very much a connector and so much about giving back and service. What is your view of, and I'm putting you on the spot.
No.
What is your view of the city or the region and the opportunity? What are some of the positives that you see in the region?
A lot of positives, and I've said this to a lot of the councillors, which I know, and in public and over there. What really drives me crazy is we've got this beautiful area, and the cultural corridor, cultural district there is coming fantastic, but it's almost like, did we go too fast? Because some of the infrastructure is not there.
For the cultural
just
corridor,
the whole movement of traffic through Kelowna.
Oh, okay.
It's just it's not there, right? So and sometimes they got to be called out because when I was on the chamber board, we had a transportation committee, and so the Kelowna Chamber was instrumental in getting the city to do the transportation study.
Yep.
But the part of the study which they weren't doing until the chamber got involved, and I'm quite proud that was part of that, is there wasn't a movement of commercial goods.
The study to
do that. Because I asked the question, I said, what about all these trucks going through the city, these fruit trucks, right? That's another story for another whole hour debate.
Yeah.
So, and then they started looking into it, and then they said, well, we'll have movement of commercial goods. And how they didn't look at everything was the fact that out in Rutland, until the chamber got involved, they had Houghton Road higher priority than Rutland Road. Well, if anybody's driven Rutland Road when school gets out, how could they do that? So they pivoted their priorities. But that's the one thing that drives me crazy, because sometimes what happened is there's a lot of good planners in the city. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for them.
Agreed.
But sometimes they don't reach out to some of the, I'll call them mature people in the community rather than the old, is to reach out what the historical component of it is.
Okay.
And if they do, they get a different aspect. And a couple times I was on the Agricultural Advisory Committee, as I pointed out this, we didn't know that. Well, it takes a phone call. They know enough people in the community. It takes a phone call to get that maybe that historical perspective of something that was there. So I think we're getting there, but I still think we have a lot way to go on the engagement of people and the infrastructure of what's happening in town. Because there's going to be 80,000 more people in the next 10 years moving in Kelowna. Well, I don't know. They better do something with moving traffic, because it's awful at times. And we're not a big size population wise, but we do have some issues with I think moving the traffic around. And the other thing when it comes to say how the city's going, I think if we provincially or municipally, provincially, and federally, if we have the concept that we value food, a lot of those policies would be different. Because
How so?
Because if you value food,
Yeah.
you'd respect the agricultural land reserve more. You try to encourage why people come here, the wineries, all that. So you have to. I think we've got to work more on that than what we do.
That's fascinating.
So there's a lot of there's a lot of work that has to be done, I think, to visualize that, because when you go to Europe, they don't anywhere. I've only been to Italy, but in Europe, they don't waste a square foot of land because there is none. So if we take that attitude and we can work around maybe the buildings, like they're not finally going up, with some of the buildings. Does everybody want to live in a condo? No. But let's encourage that.
For those that do. So
right.
Variety in housing stock.
And I had an argument with my sister-in-law. I tell her this all the time. She was talking about that her daughter couldn't afford a house in Kelowna. Totally get that. It's,
Yep.
But I said to her, so where did your dad come from? And she said, well, you know where he came from. He came from Italy. And I said, so why did he come here? Oh, because there was better opportunity. Oh, so if your daughter had to buy a house in Vernon, it's a half-hour drive. Well, the point I was getting at, people move around because there's better opportunity. You can't just try to fit everything into here. That's why you get people from Los Angeles moving up here to Toronto, because there's opportunity here. There's enough cultural stuff. There's enough that they feel quite home, because it's pretty vibrant. Downtown Kelowna is pretty vibrant in good ways. I'm not talking about some of the other ways, but other issues. But yeah, it's
an exciting city. It's changed enormously.
Totally. But the town center was actually started by where Don Ray is now. The first store was right across the street from Don Ray. Under that, there's an old gray house there.
Yeah.
You can see that was LeQuim's first store, and then he laid out the town site on Bernard
Really?
LeQuim, because all the farmland was there. That it was so many mosquitoes and so much issue close to the lake. Nobody wanted that property.
Fascinating.
So it started there, and then then they said, well, this is crazy. All this goods come in by boat, and we had to go by horse and buggy from there to where the people are, and then it didn't make any sense, right?
So Dominic, how can people find you or reach out to you? I think you're an incredible mentor. I think you like to pass the baton.
I'm willing to. My cell number is 250-862-7326, and I take lots of calls. My email is ramponecattle@gmail.com. Either way, you can send me a text or whatever. And I've gotten people. Through the other thing I'm involved with is
Rampone Cattle at gmail.com.
Is the Okanagan, the connector program that the region. So I've helped people from Iran, Ukraine, fantastic people that trying to help them get jobs through that connector program. And that's a big asset is the Okanagan College.
Yeah.
To Kelowna, right? Because they can adapt their courses quicker than UBC can. Mm-hmm. But it's so encouraging, and I've had some argument with people that are more mature than I am. They complain about the traffic and that, and I said, well, you know what? I said, have you been to the hospital? And they said, yeah, I had an operation there. Really? I said, if Kelowna wasn't the size it is, that hospital wouldn't happen. You wouldn't if people didn't fight for UBCO, you wouldn't have trained doctors getting over here. So I said we have to take everything with
the bad,
and work on ways to improve what we have, and that's where I think more people get involved. And it's not just getting involved, like I said earlier, come with a solution, because so many people that I run into, they said, that's so wrong, but they don't think the whole thing through. So I said to some people, I said, and even about the transportation plan. So people, we've talked, and I said, go to the city and get the 20-year transportation plan. They go look at it, and they say, oh, that's pretty good. I said, how fast that happens is up for debate.
Sure.
But the overall plan is not bad. So I think there's some real positive things to come out. But the other positive thing in relating to the West Bank First Nations, so the Toko people, and I heard this from some band members, is they have involved the West Bank First Nations from the beginning on some input on the site. They feel really good about that because the mill site, they refer to that as canoe landing because they used to land their canoes there.
I did not know that.
So they have some ownership to it, but now they're getting recognized. They were so happy that Toko reached out to them from the beginning. Are they going to be involved with the development? Probably not, but they have some input to understand where it's coming from. And even I got representing West Bank First Nation on the Thompson Okanagan Tourist Association, some events they have.
For Toto,
yeah. So we had and I felt bad for the executive director of the WFN Economic. I said, I kind of took over the conversation, I said. But when you come across, or you go the other way, you see the big Kelowna sign. I really think underneath it should have the Indigenous word for it. People would stop and apply. It has some meaning. Same thing when you go into Welcome to West Kelowna. Have with the Indigenous word Kelowna, grizzly bear or bear, whatever you see that, we have to encourage, because people like to know, why is it Kelowna? It's just like Penticton is a meeting place because there's two lakes. So there's any name that the First Nations people have, there's so much meaning to it that
it should be incorporated and included in.
That's right. So there's lots of kind of bouncing all over the place, but there's so much excitement that could happen over here for what we're doing, and supportive people like yourself and your family supporting what's going on here, both professionally and personally. So that's the type of people that Kelowna is attracting now are that type of people. They're interested in finding out about different things. We've had lots of conversations over the years about a variety of topics, but that's so encouraging because it's kind of like you want to find out, what happens or what doesn't. So it's pretty exciting times.
Dominic, you are so impressive in all that you do, and I think, I know beyond a shadow of doubt, you're a great example for others to look at and to emulate and to try and follow in your footsteps. And I know I appreciate all that you do, and I know many in this community, or most, appreciate what you do. And
those are very, very kind words. But one thing before this patch on my jacket, it's got Diamond R Ranch. This here was the first the first brand that the Rampones had in Canada. So we tried to register this brand again, but the provincial government won't let you, because when you brand the cattle, it grows together. So they won't allow anything inside anymore. So but you can register a company name or whatever. So it's
Diamond R Ranch.
Yep, it's pretty. It's pretty exciting. Like, so if you take the old and the new, because I remember my grandfather, you can do all the scientific weather forecasting you went. So if you look at where Father Pendozi Mission is, and you look up on the hill, if there's snow on Little White, it's too early to plant the garden.
Just like that.
That's all. So I thought, my grandfather's maybe had too much red wine. But you follow that, and the weather's unsettled.
Yeah.
It just is, And then even planting some of the seeds. My grandmother used to say, don't plant lettuce on the full moon because then it won't make a head. It'll just go into seed. So I thought, okay, this folklore is just, I never did. She passed away now, but I never told her that every time I planted it on the full moon, it never made the head. how do you argue with
They're smart.
some of
There's
those older?
great ways.
Yeah, you know,
we just have
to
to
do that. So
listen
you
and
have
learn.
to respect those or take with the pioneers and take with the
Yeah.
experienced pit and
Test it or try it or
right. And you may have to massage it a
Yes.
little bit, you know, with current methods. But even my grandfather, so they grow a lot of tomatoes, and so this was just after the war. So for people that are farming, Ford's had a 9-end Ford tractor. It was the biggest, smallest tractor. Anyhow, it was a fantastic. Everybody bought them in Canada. So before that, they would cultivate the tomatoes with a horse and buggy. So when they got the tractor, everybody's, we called him Nolan, you got to try this and that. He goes over there, and after a couple hours, I wasn't born at the time, comes back and says, I don't like that thing. He said, what do you mean? Like, you don't have to, feed the horse or whatever. He said, yeah, but when you come to the end of the row, the horse would stop and would maneuver its feet not to hit the plant. Well, the tractor doesn't know that. He would clip it.
right over the...
He said, we're losing land for planting because we got to have room to turn around at the end. It was quite an interesting story of how, technology is done good, but we also got to, encompass.
Be pioneers in it and bring it in.
But if we got a second, I got to tell you one story about the importance.
Do we have a second, Nicholas?
We're kind of running out of time.
Okay.
Dom, I'm bringing you in again because you're just
we got
full of
lots
stories, and I
lots.
appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate for what you do in the community and allowing me to get on my soapbox.
Love it. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining.